The night was heavy with rain, and the man drove his old car down the empty road, the headlights cutting through the darkness like two tired eyes searching for rest. He had been driving for hours, and his body ached with hunger and fatigue. He saw a flickering neon sign ahead that read motel vacancy, and without thinking much he pulled into the cracked parking lot. He stepped out into the wet air, the smell of dust and rain mixing together, and walked toward the office where an old man behind the counter gave him a key without speaking much. The man nodded, took the key, and moved toward his room. The walls of the motel seemed thin, the doors creaked, and the place smelled faintly of smoke, but he was too tired to care. Inside his room, he dropped his bag on the floor, sat on the bed, and leaned back. He looked at the menu card left on the side table. It said breakfast service available, call the number below. His stomach growled, and he decided to order something simple: eggs, toast, and coffee. Nothing special, just enough to fill his empty stomach. He picked up the phone, dialed the number, and spoke in a low, tired voice. He gave his room number and said, "Breakfast, please." Night faded slowly into the first light of dawn. The sound of rain softened, and the man drifted in and out of sleep until he heard a knock at the door. He rubbed his eyes and stood up, expecting a tray of food. He unlocked the door and pulled it open, and what he saw made his breath stop. A girl stood there, not holding a tray, not wearing a uniform. Her eyes were wide and glowing faintly like small stars. Her skin had a pale shimmer that reflected the weak light of the hallway. She wore no shoes, her feet dirty from running. She looked scared, but her gaze was fixed directly on him. She whispered in a shaky voice, "They told me you would help me." Her voice was soft and broken. The man froze, his hand still on the doorframe. He wanted to speak, but no words came out. He looked at her again, thinking maybe his tired eyes were playing tricks, but no, this was no ordinary girl. She looked fragile yet strange, like she was not from this world. "I'm not your breakfast," she said, her lips trembling. "I am not from here. I came because I had no other choice." Her words fell heavy into the silence of the small motel room. Man stepped back slowly, and she moved inside, closing the door behind her. She leaned against it, breathing hard as if she had been running for a long time. Her hands shook. She kept looking at the window as if afraid someone was watching. He asked her in a low, uncertain voice, "Who are you and why are you here?" Looked at him with a mix of fear and hope, and answered, "I cannot stay outside. They are searching for me. They will find me. If I do not hide, please, you must believe me. I was told a human could help me, and you are the first one." I found her words flowed quickly, desperate, as if every second mattered. The man felt confusion crawling through his mind. He thought maybe she was sick, maybe she was escaping someone dangerous, maybe she was out of her senses. But when her glowing eyes met his, he knew deep inside this was something far more than a lost girl. Outside, the sound of a car passing slowly through the parking lot made her body tense. She dropped to the floor, crawling under the window, her whole frame shaking. He followed her gaze and saw only shadows moving. But something in the way she reacted told him she was not lying. Something was out there, searching. He asked her softly, "Breakfast delivery was just an excuse, right? You came here on purpose to find me?" She nodded without lifting her head and whispered, "Yes, they will not suspect you because you are human. They think you are nothing. They think you are blind and weak and ordinary, but that is why I came. I was told only humans can hide what others cannot see." Man sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her, unable to fully grasp what she was saying, but his gut told him this was not madness. This was real. The air in the room grew heavy, the silence broken only by the distant sound of rain dripping from the roof. The girl looked up at him, her eyes shimmering with tears and fear, and something more, something that looked like faith. He had checked into a cheap motel looking for food and sleep, but what had walked into his room was not breakfast. It was the beginning of something he could not yet name, something that would change his life forever. Girl sat curled on the floor, her body trembling, as if every sound from outside was a warning, her eyes never leaving the window. The man stood still for a long moment, his mind filled with questions, but he knew she would not wait for him to figure things out. She needed to speak, and he needed To listen, she whispered in a voice so soft it almost broke. I am not from your world. I came here because they hunt me, and they will not stop until they take me away. Her hands clutched the edge of the bed as she tried to steady herself, her voice shaking. I was told humans are invisible to them. Humans are not important in the galaxy. They see you as nothing, but that is what makes you strong. The man could not believe the words, but at the same time he could not deny the strange glow of her eyes, the shimmer of her skin, and the way her body shook with real fear. He asked her slowly, "Why me? Why this place? Why now?" She looked at him with a desperate gaze and said, "Because you are human, and they will not think to look for me with you. They think humans are weak, but that is why you can hide me. They will not search inside your shadow." A heavy knock echoed on the next door down the hallway. The sound made both of them freeze. The girl pressed her hands over her mouth and shook her head violently, her eyes wide, as if to say, "Do not make a sound." The man felt his heart race. He heard footsteps moving closer, slow, steady, deliberate. Someone was checking each room. The girl crawled toward him, her hand clutching his arm with surprising strength. "Please," she begged. "They cannot see me. If they see me, it is over." Her words filled the air like a storm, and he knew in that instant that he had a choice to make: either open the door when the knock came and give her away, or stand between her and whatever was hunting her. He whispered, "Stay behind me," and she nodded, tears running down her face. The footsteps came closer, then stopped right outside their door. A silence heavier than the night settled. The man could hear his own heartbeat. And then a deep voice spoke from the other side. "Room service is not safe here. Open the door." Man felt the weight of those words, but he stayed quiet, his hand pressed against the girl's shoulder, keeping her low to the floor. The silence stretched until finally the footsteps moved away down the hall. The girl let out a broken breath and collapsed against the floor, her whole body shaking. She whispered, "You see, they are here. They watch, they smell, they hear. But they cannot understand you. They think humans are only dust under their feet. That is why you must help me." Her voice cracked. "I carry something they want, something that can change everything. And if they take it, the galaxy will fall into their hands." The man tried to understand, but the words felt too heavy, too impossible. Yet he could see in her trembling body and desperate eyes that she was not lying. He asked her, "What is it you carry?" And she looked down at her hands before slowly opening her palm. Inside, her skin shimmered with faint lines like a map glowing faintly in the dark. She whispered, "This is not just in me. It is me. I hold the code to freedom for my people, and they will kill me to keep it hidden." Rooms suddenly felt smaller, the walls pressing in the rain outside, falling harder, like the world itself was warning him. He had come for a bed and a meal, but instead, he was now holding a secret that others would burn the earth to destroy. He asked her, "What do I do now?" And she looked at him with fear mixed with hope. "You must help me escape. You must hide me until we can find a safe place." Her words carried weight, but also trust, as if she had already decided he was the only one she could turn to. Man rubbed his face, his tiredness gone, replaced by a rising fire in his chest. He had no weapons, no plan, no idea of what lay ahead, but something in him refused to throw her out, something human that could not ignore the plea in her voice. Then, suddenly, the sound of engines filled the parking lot. The girl's eyes widened. She whispered, "They are here." And her voice cracked like glass. She crawled to the corner of the room, pressing herself against the wall, her body shaking like a leaf. The man moved to the curtain and peeked outside. 3 black vans had pulled into the lot, their headlights cutting through the rain shadows, moved quickly from the vehicles, tall figures, wearing long coats, their movements sharp and cold. He could not see their faces, but he knew instantly these were not men. They were the hunters she had spoken of. The man's stomach twisted, fear spreading through him like fire. But then he felt her hand clutch his arm again, and her voice, though weak, carried a strange strength. She said, "You are human, and that is why they will not expect you to fight back. They will never see it coming." Her words planted something in his chest, something stronger than fear, something that felt like a decision. He had not yet spoken, but was already made. He would not open the door He would not give her up. Whatever these hunters were, they would have to get through him first. The night air outside grew heavier as the engines of the black vans hummed like beasts waiting to strike. The man kept his eyes at the small gap of the curtain while the girl crouched in the corner, her breathing sharp and uneven. He saw the shadows of tall figures moving across the lot, their steps slow and certain, like hunters that already knew their prey was cornered. He whispered to her, "We cannot stay here. They will search every room, and when they find this door, they will break it down." Her eyes wide with fear, yet filled with something that looked like trust, nodded quickly. She said, "If we stay, we are finished. If we run, there is a chance." Man grabbed his worn jacket and pulled it on. He lifted his old bag from the floor, not with clothes inside, but only a flashlight, a map, and a rusted knife. Things he never thought would matter, but now felt like his only tools of survival. He reached for her hand, and she took it with a trembling grip. The hallway outside creaked with every step they took, the walls thin, the smell of smoke stronger, as if the whole motel itself held its breath. The man led her toward the back exit, a narrow door that opened to the broken fence behind the building. He prayed silently that the hunters had not yet spread in this direction. The door opened with a groan that echoed too loud in the silence. He flinched, but there was no time to stop. He pulled her through, and they slipped into the wet grass behind the motel. The rain had softened to a mist, the sky heavy with clouds that seemed to press down upon them. They ran across the lot, their footsteps sinking in the mud, and behind them, the sound of a motel door crashing open filled the night, followed by voices sharp and inhuman. The girl gasped, "They have found the trail. They are following us." The man pulled her harder, his lungs burning, his mind focused only on escape. They reached his car parked crooked near the end of the lot. He shoved her inside, started the engine, and the old machine roared to life louder than he wished. Headlights slicing through the mist, he slammed his foot on the pedal and the tires spun, throwing mud. As the car lunged forward onto the empty highway, in the mirror, he saw lights behind them. The vans had turned, giving chase, their beams bright like the eyes of predators closing in. The girl clutched the seat, her eyes never leaving the road ahead. She whispered, "They will not stop until they have me." But then she looked at him and added, "But they cannot understand you. They think humans are only prey." The highway stretched endless before them, dark trees lining each side like silent watchers. The car rattled with every bump. The man gripped the wheel tight, his jaw set. He did not know how long the car could hold out, but he knew they had to keep moving. He asked her, "Why me? Why did you come to me of all people?" Her voice shook as she answered, "I was told long ago that humans are the only ones the hunters fear, not because of power or weapons, but because of something else. Something they cannot see, something inside you." She turned her glowing eyes toward him and whispered, "You are unpredictable. You do not follow their rules. That is why I believed you could help." Her words struck deep. He had never thought of himself as anything more than ordinary, but now, with the hunters closing in and this fragile alien girl trusting her life in his hands, he felt a fire burn inside, a fire that told him he would not give her up, no matter what. Chase grew faster, the vans gaining the roar of their engines like thunder rolling closer. He turned sharply off the main road onto a smaller path, a cracked and forgotten stretch that led through thick woods. The car bounced and skidded, but he held on the headlights, slicing the trees as if cutting through darkness itself. Branches scratched against the windows, the smell of wet earth filling the car. The girl leaned closer, her voice low. "They will follow, but this road will slow them. You must trust your instinct. Human instinct is what they cannot fight." She clutched the edge of her seat, her fear mixing with hope. Behind them, the glow of the vans grew dimmer, the trees slowing their advance. But he knew this was only a pause, not the end. The hunters were relentless, and they would not give up until she was theirs or destroyed. They drove deeper until the road ended at an abandoned gas station, its walls cracked, its sign broken. The man pulled the car behind the remains of the building, shutting the lights off, the engine ticking in the silence. He turned to her and whispered, "We cannot run forever. We need to think." She looked at him, her eyes filled with exhaustion, and whispered, "They will come here. Soon they always find me, but if they do, you must know the truth before it ends," she raised, her trembling hand showing him the glowing lines on her skin again. "They are not just a mark, they are a code, a secret of freedom hidden in me. If they take it, they will rule the stars. But if you protect me, if you help me carry it, then hope will live." The man stared at her, his breath heavy, his heart racing. He had no reason to believe he could stand against such hunters, but in her eyes, he saw something more than fear. He saw belief in him, belief in humanity, belief that he was not just another shadow on a forgotten world. He placed his hand on hers, the glow lighting his palm, and whispered, "Then we will not let them take it. We will not let them take you." Outside, the silence broke with the sound of engines drawing near. The girl's body stiffened, her eyes wide once more. The hunters had found them again, and there was no more running. Abandoned gas station sat silent under the heavy clouds. The rain had stopped, but the air was thick with tension. The man parked the car behind the broken pumps and turned off the engine. The girl sat trembling beside him, her glowing eyes scanning the darkness. She whispered, "They will be here soon. Their steps do not falter. They always find me." Man took a deep breath, his mind racing. He had no weapons, no plan, and yet he felt a strange certainty that humans had something the hunters would never see. He whispered to her, "We cannot hide forever. We must face them somehow." She nodded slowly, her hands shaking as she touched the glowing lines on her skin. "They are in me, and if they get me, all is lost. But together we have a chance." From the shadows, the hunters emerged, tall and silent, their coats brushing the ground, their faces hidden. The man could feel their cold intent. They moved like a single organism, calculating every step, every possibility. He swallowed fear and gripped the rusted knife in his hand. The girl looked at him, her eyes filled with trust, and he knew he could not fail. The first hunter stepped forward, a long metal rod in his hand. The man felt his pulse race, but then something inside him shifted, a fire. He had never known. His muscles tightened, and he moved before thinking, throwing a rock at a puddle to startle the shadow. The splash of water reflected the weak moonlight, and the hunter paused momentarily. That was all he needed. He charged forward, swinging the knife more as a distraction than a weapon, his heart pounding, his mind focused on her safety. The girl ducked behind the old gas pump, her glowing skin lighting the shadows as if daring the hunters to take her. She whispered, "Run when I say run." Hunters reacted quickly, but the man was unpredictable. He dove behind broken walls, ducked low, and through debris. Their coordinated movements faltered. They had not expected a human to fight like this. Not a human thinking without rules, without fear of consequence. Each step he took was chaotic, yet precise, confusing them more than any weapon could. The girl watched him, her hands trembling. She whispered, "You see now why humans are feared. They do not follow patterns. They do not reason like we do. They fight for more than themselves. They fight for trust, for belief, and the hunters cannot understand it. They cannot predict." I've moved closer to her, picking up a piece of pipe from the ground, swinging it with a raw strength born from desperation. The hunters faltered again. They had never faced a human like this, a human not strong in muscle, but in will, not clever in technology, but in unpredictability. They could not match his courage. The battle stretched across the broken lot, the man and the girl weaving through shadows and ruins, the hunters striking and retreating, their faces masked, but their frustration clear. The man shouted for her to move, and she did, gliding across the wet ground like a whisper, leaving trails of glowing light that confused the hunters. Further, he saw an opening, a chance to turn the fight in their favor. He grabbed her hand and ran toward the woods behind the gas station. The hunters followed quickly, but every step the man took led them through traps of broken glass, puddles, and debris, slowing them just enough. The girl whispered, "You are more than they ever imagined. Human instinct is dangerous, and now they see it." The trees closed around them, the darkness thick, but the man used it like a shield. The hunters could see the glow of the girl, but could not predict his moves. He ducked, twisted, and led them deeper. Their frustration growing with every failed attempt to catch him. Finally they reached a small clearing. The girl whispered, "We can make our stand here." The man nodded, understanding that this would be the moment they could either escape or be caught. He placed her behind a large tree covering her while he stepped forward, his body tense, ready for anything. Hunters appeared at the edge of the clearing, their eyes cold, their movements swift. They thought this would be an easy capture. They underestimated the human. Beside the girl, the man shouted now and threw a branch across the path. The noise startled the hunters. The girl leaped from behind the tree, her glowing body like a spark in the dark. She ran across the clearing. The man followed, swinging his knife and using every ounce of unpredictability. The hunters stumbled one by one. They fell into traps the man had set. With his quick thinking and knowledge of the terrain, he led them away from her and into confusion. The hunters regrouped, but every second they wasted allowed the girl to reach safety. She reached the edge of the woods and whispered, "Thank you, human. You see now what I saw. Humans are dangerous, not because of strength, but because of heart, because of courage, because of belief in each other." The man looked at her glowing face and felt a warmth he had never known. This was not just survival, this was a revelation. The hunters would remember this night, not for the fight but for the impossibility of understanding a human who fights for another without reason, without plan, just pure will and loyalty. Girl touched his shoulder lightly, her voice low but strong. "You saved me, and you showed me why humans are feared and respected in the galaxy. Because they fight for more than themselves. Because they do not follow the expected path. Because they are unpredictable and full of heart." The man nodded, still breathing hard, his mind racing, but inside him he felt a pride that was quiet and steady. They had survived the night. The hunters would regroup, but they had learned something they could not ignore. Humans were more than ordinary beings. They were wild, unmeasured forces of nature that could not be tamed or predicted. The rain started again, softly on the leaves above them. The girl whispered, "We can leave now, but we must move quickly." The man grabbed her hand, and together they ran deeper into the woods, the sound of engines fading behind them. The night seemed calmer now, but the tension remained, their hearts beating in unison, aware that the journey was far from over, but confident that together they could face anything. They disappeared into the dark forest. The hunters left behind them, confused and frustrated, unable to understand the force that had thwarted them. The girl looked at the man with a glowing smile and whispered, "You have taught me something. Humans are extraordinary, and I am grateful beyond words." The man smiled back quietly, knowing that the night had changed him too. He realized that the galaxy was bigger and stranger than he ever imagined. And yet in that vastness humans had something the hunters could never take: courage, heart, and loyalty. The forest was thick and dark. The man and the girl ran side by side, the sound of distant engines growing fainter with every step, but the tension remained, like a weight pressing on their shoulders. They knew the hunters would not give up. They would track them across any terrain. The girl whispered, "We must keep moving, but soon we will face them fully." And he nodded, understanding that this was the moment of truth. They reached a small abandoned clearing, the moonlight breaking through clouds, illuminating the fallen leaves and broken trees. The girl stopped for a moment, her glowing eyes scanning the darkness. She whispered, "This is it. The hunters will come, and we cannot run any further." The man felt his chest tighten, fear and determination mixing into a single fire. He took a deep breath and whispered, "Then we fight together, whatever comes." From the shadows the hunters appeared, emerging silently, their tall forms menacing, their faces still hidden, their movements calculated, like a single organism focused on one goal. The man felt his hands tighten around the rusted knife and the branch he had picked up earlier. He stepped forward in front of the girl, shielding her with his body, every muscle tense, every nerve alert. The girl raised her hand slightly, her skin glowing brighter than ever. The hunters faltered for a moment, the glow reflecting off the wet leaves, showing them the impossible secret they sought. They reached for weapons that the man could barely imagine, but he stayed calm. He realized the secret was not in power, but in courage, the unpredictability of a human heart. First hunter lunged forward. He swung a long metal rod, and the man dodged using every ounce of instinct, moving in ways the hunters could not anticipate. His swings chaotic, yet effective, confusing them more than any weapon could. The girl moved behind him, leaving trails of glowing light that further disoriented the hunters. The forest echoed with the clash of metal and the shuffle of feet. The man used every object around him, throwing rocks, kicking debris, and dodging attacks that seemed impossible to avoid, each move fueled by fear and determination, each step showing the hunters that humans were not to be underestimated. The girl whispered, "Now run," but he shook his head. "This is not just escape. We end this now." She looked at him, her eyes filled with trust and courage. Together, they became a force the hunters could not predict. The man using raw instinct and the girl using her glowing presence, they moved as one, striking fear into their pursuers. One by one, the hunters stumbled into the traps. The man had improvised using fallen branches, slippery leaves, and broken ground, each misstep costing them precious seconds. The girl used the glow of her body to blind and confuse them, turning their precise strikes into chaotic swings that missed every time. Tallest hunter roared, stepping forward, trying to regain control, but the man was faster, thinking not with strategy, but with heart, each movement unpredictable, each decision made in the moment. The girl glowed brighter, pushing them back, showing that courage and trust were more powerful than fear or weapons. Finally, only one hunter remained, his movements desperate, his attacks wild. The man met him head-on, moving with speed and instinct, striking with anything he could reach. The girl added a glowing burst that blinded him for a moment, giving the man the chance to strike decisively with a heavy branch, sending the hunter crashing to the ground. The forest fell silent, except for the heavy breaths of the man and the girl. The hunters were defeated not by strength alone, but by the courage, loyalty, and unpredictability of a human heart. The girl stepped forward, her glowing body dimming slightly. She whispered, "We did it because of you, because of humans. You have shown me why the galaxy fears and respects your kind." The man felt exhaustion wash over him, but also a quiet pride. He realized that he had always thought of himself as ordinary, but tonight he had done extraordinary things. He had fought for someone else, not for glory, not for reward, but for trust and belief, and that had made all the difference. The girl reached for his hand, her glowing fingers touching his skin gently. She whispered, "I will stay with you now, not because I must, but because I choose to. You have shown me what humans can be, and I want to learn more about this world with you." She smiled, her eyes filled with warmth and relief. He smiled back quietly, understanding that the night had changed both of them forever. The forest around them no longer felt threatening, but alive with possibility. They knew the hunters would return eventually, but they also knew that humans were unpredictable. Humans fought for more than themselves, and that gave them power beyond weapons and numbers. They walked out of the forest together, careful but confident, the first light of dawn breaking across the horizon, painting the world with hope and promise. The girl whispered, "This is only the beginning, but I am not afraid, not with you by my side." The man nodded, feeling something inside him that was quiet, but unstoppable. The old car still sat in the distance waiting. They approached it together. She climbed in, and he started the engine. The sound echoed across the empty road, but now it was not a sound of fear. It was a sound of determination and partnership. They drove away from the forest, the road ahead long and uncertain, but their hearts steady, knowing they had faced the impossible and survived. And as the sun rose higher, the man realized that the world was bigger than he had ever imagined, and yet humans carried something unique, something the galaxy could never fully understand: courage, loyalty, heart, and the strength to protect what matters most. And beside him was proof of that in the form of a small glowing girl who trusted him completely. They drove together into the morning, their shadows long across the empty road, knowing that whatever came next they would face it together, because humanity was not weak. It was extraordinary, unpredictable, unstoppable. and they were living proof of it. The hunters would return maybe one day. But by then they would understand that humans were not ordinary beings. They were forces of nature guided by heart and courage, and tonight, they had seen it firsthand, and the man smiled as he looked at the girl and whispered quietly, "We made it. We survived together, and the galaxy would never forget it." The end.